Most moral discussions online focus on Greek philosophers like Aristotle or modern theories like utilitarianism. But long before either existed, another ethical system had already emerged: the Ten Commandments. Far from being just a list of religious rules, the Decalogue can be seen as one of the oldest and most effective harm prevention frameworks in human history. When you strip away the theology and look at it through the lens of philosophy and social ethics, it becomes pretty clear that these commandments form a sophisticated moral system designed to minimize suffering, promote fairness, and sustain healthy communities. But before diving into the commandments themselves, it does help to define what we mean by moral behavior. At its core, ethical conduct means avoiding intentional harm to another person, either physical, emotional, or psychological. And you should avoid harming them for personal gain, pleasure, or out of indifference. Now, this baseline aligns with what moral philosopher Christian Smith calls the foundation of all moral systems, deciding whether consequences actually matter and what role fairness plays, and whether humans can be trusted to do good on their own. The Ten Commandments addresses all three questions in ways that still hold up thousands of years later. The second half of the Ten Commandments, the ones that most people recognize, deal directly with preventing interpersonal harm. Honor your father and mother. May sound like simple obedience, but in the ancient world, it was a form of social security. It ensured that the elderly weren't abandoned in societies without pensions or welfare. Do not murder obviously prohibits physical harm, but as Thomas Aquinas points out, it also includes what he called spiritual murder, destroying someone's reputation or livelihood. Do not commit adultery guards against the emotional betrayal and family instability, both of which ripple outward to harm children and communities. Do not steal prevents the foundation of economic cooperation, the trust that what's yours won't be taken from you. Do not bear false witness defends truth in and of itself, the glue that holds justice systems and relationships together. And finally, do not covet goes way deeper than behavior and actually addresses mindset that leads to behavior. It warns against envy and resentment, emotions that, if left unchecked, often lead to lying, theft, or violence. In short, these commandments don't just ban harmful acts, they target the motives and social dynamics that actually cause them. But it's the first four commandments that are a little trickier. They focus on humanity's relationship with God, but even from a secular standpoint, they function as safeguards against systematic harm. In the ancient Near East, competing religions often justified things that we would now call atrocities: child sacrifice, exploitation, and political domination in the name of the gods. The first commandment, "You shall have no other gods before me," was revolutionary because it actually rejected those systems entirely. Thinkers like Maimonides argued that divine laws exist for both spiritual reasons and the health of society and the soul. Likewise, Aquinas' natural law theory shows how religious principles often mirror what's good for humans by nature: protecting life, fostering truth, and preserving community. Even if you take the theology out of it, these commandments can be translated into practical ethics. No other gods warns against totalizing ideologies, whether that be nationalism, political fanaticism, or economic dogma. that justify harm in the name of a greater cause. No graven images cautions against idolizing abstractions or leaders, reminding us not to turn human symbols into unquestionable authority. Do not take the Lord's name in vain. Now, this discourages misusing truth claims, whether God told me, science proves, or common sense says, to manipulate others. And even remember the Sabbath was a pretty radical call for universal rest and dignity, even for servants and animals. It was essentially a commandment against exploitation, reminding everyone that people are not simply machines. And even modern research backs this up. Rest, reflection, and limits on work reduce stress, improve relationships, and prevent social burnout. In other words, the first four commandments protect societies from institutional harm in the same way the last six prevent personal harm. Together, these two halves form an interlocking moral system. The first four establish the foundations, shared values, honesty, and respect for limits, while the last six translate those values into daily behaviors. Without shared principles, moral disagreements dissolve into tribalism. Without honesty, corporations collapse. Without rest, compassion dries up. And without compassion, the other commandments lose all meaning. As sociologist Christian Smith found, moral systems anchored in deeper philosophical or theological roots create people who behave ethically, even when no one is watching, while these shallow, feel good moral codes tend to crumble under pressure pretty quickly. The Ten Commandments also operate as a virtue building system. Maimonides and Aristotle both believed that moral laws are meant to shape character, not just to control the behavior. Following them out of an understanding rather than fear develops genuine virtue. A person trained in honesty does not avoid lying because they are afraid of punishment. They avoid it because dishonesty feels morally wrong. In that sense, the commandments train people to want what is good and recoil from what's destructive. And modern research does support this view. Studies show that people familiar with structured moral codes, like the Ten Commandments, tend to cheat less, give more to charity, and behave more ethically overall. Psychologist Charles Kalish found that when adults face serious moral decisions, they often fall back on early learned principles. These frameworks, once internalized, act as mental guardrails, helping people navigate the ethical challenges automatically. So, why keep the first four commandments at all? Why not just stick with the obviously moral ones? Don't kill, don't steal, and don't lie. Well, there are three strong answers. First, history shows that societies grounded in transcendent moral principles tend to have higher levels of trust and lower rates of violence. Second, philosophy also shows that without ultimate commandments, something deeper than human preference, morality becomes subjective and fragile. And third, psychology shows that moral behavior rooted in identity and values lasts much longer than behavior motivated by fear or convenience. The theological commandments give moral systems meaning, direction, and endurance. Now, for religious believers, this framework highlights how divine law aligns with human well being. But even for non religious thinkers, it offers a proven system of ethics that it has survived millennia precisely because it actually works. It combines elements of virtue ethics, deontology, consequentialism, and even social contract theory. It recognizes that good individuals need good systems and that virtuous societies actually do require having virtual people. In the end, that's what makes the Ten Commandments timeless. They connect personal virtue with public justice, private restraint with collective peace. And whether you believe they came from the top of a mountain or from human wisdom refined over generations, their moral insight still stands. A society that respects truth, rest, loyalty, and life is a society that will endure forever. So, with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see y'all next time.